is a prepaid call from
Randall.
an inmate at the Virginia Department of Corrections, Red Onion State Prison. To accept this call, press 0.
This is Randall Via, and I'm currently serving 1,214 years in Red Onion State Prison for capital murder in the state of Virginia in the USA. This is my podcast, Red Onion Randy. Today, I had a question from G-Man, or Greg, that asked about child molesters, sexual offenders, and how they're treated in prison, everything that they deal with, go through, so on and so forth. So I'm going to answer that question today. As my longtime listeners know, I'm actually here at Red Onion for slitting a child molester's throat back in 2006. And it's something I'm not exactly proud of anymore, looking back and, having renounced violence and so on and so forth to the best of my ability. But it's almost like in prison, they deserve to be beaten. They deserve to be cut and stabbed and just abused. And that's the thing. See, I have a hard time when it comes to them because I hate bullies. I will stand up against a bully with the quickness. Try that with me. Please, I beg you. I'm asking you to do it. That's how much I hate bullies. I can't stand it when somebody stronger picks on somebody weaker. I've never been that way. Even back when I was in elementary school, I would fight the bullies. I would target the bullies. But in here, you have a lot of people who bully child molesters. They bully sex offenders because they're at the bottom of the totem pole in prison. When it comes to the pecking order, they're not even on the totem pole. They get no respect. They get horribly treated. And it's like you are never, ever going to have a child molester in a pod running it. You are never, ever going to have a child molester be in a pod and he's not paying somebody to stay in that pod. That's just the way it is. In some ways, I'm like, okay, whatever, man. You shouldn't have done what you did. You brought that on yourself. And I was molested as a child in a group home once. I'll share my experiences. And at the same time, man, I hate bullies. I hate to see people get picked on. I hate to see, because some of the forms of bullying obviously takes on the physical aspect. You have a lot of child molesters come to prison, and they turn into boys. In prison, when you call someone a boy, you're calling them a homosexual. You're calling them a faggot or what have you. That's what that terminology in prison means. They have no choice. They really have no choice because a lot of child molesters, a lot of sex offenders are the ones who wind up getting raped. They're the ones who wind up getting turned out. They get, they'll have to pay taxes, meaning either their family is going to have to send a certain individual or a certain group of individuals money on their books, or they're going to have to go to the store and buy commissary and bring it back from the store and hand it out to certain guys like this is hey. Otherwise, they can't stay in the pod. They'll get their ass beat. In some ways, I feel bad for them, but in a lot of ways, I don't, because in my mind, there's things you don't do. There's just nothing as quite as despicable as a grown-ass man, or woman for that matter. See, a lot of people think, oh, well, it's okay if a woman does it. Like hell it is. It is no reason on this earth for a man or a woman to put their hands on a child in a sexual manner, period. There's no justification for that at all. And most people who are sexual offenders, they're not guys like me. They're not built like me. They can't fight like me. They can't walk around with their head high like me. Because a person who does that, it's not about sex. It's about power. Whenever you rape someone, whenever you force someone against their will, you're not doing it to get a nut. You're doing it because you want to dominate, because you need control over someone or something. You're a weak-minded individual, and that's why people do those sorts of things. And because of that, because that person is weak-minded and they need that control, they're not capable of just standing on their own 2 feet in prison. Because I tell you right now, the very first time someone walks up to me and says, "Hey, yo, you owe me," man, there ain't no talking. I'm just gonna slap that punk, and consequences be damned. It is what it is. Like, you can't make me pay you a damn thing. However, child molesters, sex offenders, they want to try to reason with a person like that. They want to try to discuss it. They want to try to come to terms with it. You can't do that. I was molested as a child. Around 10 years old, my mom and dad got divorced, and I went through all of that situation, and I wound up getting sent to a foster home. And in the foster home, I started getting in trouble because even though I wasn't cognizantly aware of this at the time, I am now looking back on it with hindsight, I was of the mindset that, hey, if y'all don't want me, and I've done nothing to deserve y'all not wanting me, to y'all no longer loving me, I'm going to start giving y'all reasons to not want me and not love me. I started getting in trouble and doing all of this, so I was kicked out of the foster homes, and I was sent to the attention home in Charlottesville. And I was nothing but 11 years old. This is right before, literally, this is like 2 weeks before I got locked up for the first time, and started spending my entire life in juvenile and adult prison. They put me in a room with this older guy who was 17. And I remember it was late at night, and the lights were out and everything, even though we could still see. We was talking, and I remember joking around, and I cussed him out a little bit. He was like, "Yo, man, don't talk to me like that." I cussed him again. Like, we were joking. Like, he was doing the same thing to me. Like, he was talking to me the exact same way I was talking to him. There was no animosity. We was laughing. That's just the way it was. Like, I didn't know. I'm 11 years old. I come from the country, so on and so forth. Somebody cusses you, you cuss them back out. That's just the way things are. So I cussed him again. And he cussed me, and he said, you cuss me one more time, you ain't going to like what's going to happen. Oh, F you. And I just laughed, because I'm laying, I got my eyes closed, I'm under the blankets and, all that. So I'm not paying attention. What's going on. Next thing I know, dude grabs me. And he's naked, he's erect, and he forces himself into my mouth. I still remember that day. I mean, that day is burnt into my memory. It's seared in there. I remember the feel of it. I remember the taste of it. I remember how disgusted I felt, how ashamed. And I remember everything there was about that. And I remember him pulling out. I remember him, turning me over, pulling my underwear down and trying to force himself into me, trying to sodomize me. I remember the pain, and I remember how sharp. You can feel the skin tearing. Like, you can hear it. Like, it literally makes a ripping sound. Sort of like cloth almost. I don't know, like if someone's ever taken like a nylon jacket and was able to rip it, that's kind of what it sounded like. Helpless. I mean, there's, nothing I can do. Like I said, I'm 11 years old. This guy is 17. He was a big boy. Not just well endowed. I'm talking about, his height, his size. I mean, like, he was a big damn boy. All because I cussed him out. I'm just a kid. I'm new there. I don't know who was who. I don't know anything about the situation. I'm lost. I'm out of my depth. I don't know what's going on. This is the first place I've ever been and that was, it was a group home, but it was controlled movement. You couldn't go where you wanted to go. You couldn't do what you wanted to do. You had alarms on all the doors, so if you opened a door, it would beep beep, and it would echo throughout the entire house. That it would let the counselors and stuff know who's going where, what's what, so on and so forth. I mean, it's just I'm lost, and yet now I have a memory that'll never leave me. If I was to close my eyes right now, which I adamantly refuse to do, I would be back in that situation. I would be back to 11 years old, scared, crying, hurt, angry. Nothing I can do. I mean, I tried. Nothing I could do. And then, it's not like I could call for help or scream for help. And to be honest with you, even if I would have been capable of screaming for help, I seriously doubt if the counselors would have done anything, truth be told. Because in places like that, they rarely ever do, because it looks bad on them. So they cover it up. I cannot begin to tell you how many foster kids, how many kids in group homes, how many kids in juvenile detention centers and prisons are being molested on a daily basis. Whether it's by inmates or staff, or it doesn't matter. And nobody does anything. Nobody says anything, because if they do, they're responsible. They were the ones that were in charge that day, and they're afraid of losing their jobs. Instead of, helping the child, instead of making that child feel safe and, hey, yeah, a terrible thing happened to you, but we're here for you. We're so sorry. Let's help you get through this. Let's help you overcome this. This doesn't have to define your life. Instead of doing the right thing and being a man, being an adult or a grown woman and taking responsibility, they sweep it under the rug. And that happens to so many kids, and you wonder why so many of us wind up in prison. You wonder why I was so angry and filled with rage. My dad beat the living hell out of me as a kid. My family never gave a damn about me. I was molested. I mean, what else could I turn into other than some angry kid that just kept lashing out and didn't know how to respond or what to do? And as I've said, I tried reaching out for help. Not a single person on this planet at that time reached back out to me. And that's just the way it is for so many of us. I know what it's like to go through that. I know what it's like to have that memory just always there in the back of your mind. It stays with you. It really messes your mind up. It's a terrible thing to have to live with, and no child should ever have to live through it. You will never be the same surviving something like that. And the sad thing is, most victims, they don't survive it. Most victims don't overcome it. I've actually had some victims of child molestation reach out to me, and I do my damnedest to help them. I do my damnedest to make sure I write frequently, that I talk to them, that I encourage them, that I let them know, hey, you can overcome this. This doesn't have to be the defining moment in your life. Yeah, it's going to scar you. Yeah, it's damn sure going to hurt you. And you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to put that work in. You're going to have to stay in control of it. But you're never the same. I know. I speak from personal experience. While I'll talk about it, I'll let them know that, hey, there's at least one person on this planet who empathizes, who truly understands what it is you're going through. So when it comes to child molesters in prison, I have no sympathy for them. I know I should as a Christian, and I feel sorry for them in the manner that what is going on inside your head that you have to do something like that. Because to me, a person who was in their right mind, a person who was sane, would never ever do that to a child. It wouldn't happen. So to me, if you're not sane, if you're not in your right mind, then my definition of that is you're demon possessed. And that's the way I kind of look at it. So I feel sorry for them in the sense of that. And I do know that it's wrong to mistreat anybody for any reason whatsoever. But I find it so hard to feel much sympathy for them. I mean, I'm working on that, and I have to remind myself, hey, look, man, dude, don't be that way. Show some mercy, show some compassion. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to stand up for one in prison. Now, if I saw one of, somebody was going to rape one of them or something, then yeah, I will stop that. I will step in and put an end to that with quickness. I don't care what they've done or who they are. It don't matter. There's some lines in life you will not cross, and consequences be damned. But outside of that, dude, they brought it on themselves, man. And I know that's kind of harsh. I know it's a little bit cruel, and I'm sorry for that, but child molesters are completely abused and mistreated in prison. To the point where, I mean, I've seen some instances where I actually felt bad for the child molester. I was the pod that I was just in D1 across the yard, which was level 6 population. There was a child molester in that pod, and the COs treated him horribly. The inmates treated him horribly. I mean, they abused this guy. Like when they would come around once a week and they would pass out 2 rolls of toilet paper and a bar of state soap. They would set it down in front of everybody's door, and then when they would let you out for lunch or dinner, depending on what time they passed it out, they would open the doors, you would grab it, set it inside, and then you'd go down and get your tray or what have you. With him, you would walk by the cell and just see his soap has been stomped on and smashed by the COs or the inmates. His toilet paper's been crushed and ripped or spit on or soaking wet. I mean, like, they would do stuff like that. He would have to pay. He was paying one guy in the pod 2 bags of coffee a month just to be able to stay in that pod. I mean, that's what they have to do. That's the only way they're going to live in prison. So I've always felt that every state should have a prison that is strictly for sexual offenders, period. There should be a prison where there's nothing but sex offenders. If you're a child molester, if you're a rapist, if you get a certain amount of gunning charges, any type of sexual perversion, whether it be on an animal, a human, whatever, they should have their own prison where they can get the treatment and the help that they actually need. I think, a lot of officers and a lot of inmates take it upon themselves to abuse sexual offenders and child molesters and so on and so forth, in the hopes that if they make it so bad for them, because it's the thing, let's face it, they're going home. Every child molester is going to be released from prison because they don't get much time for it. That's literally the one crime in the United States that you're only going to do 3 or 4 years on, and then you're going to be released from prison, and they're going to put you right back out there. And so I guess a lot of guys are, of the mindset, look, man, I'm going to make it so bad for these people. I'm going to punish them. They're not going to eat. They're going to go hungry. They're going to suffer because we know they're going home, and when they go home, they ain't going to do this again. So I guess maybe it's, in their minds, it's sort of like a prevention technique. Although I don't see how that works, but I mean, it's one of those things, man. This is a tough subject for me to talk about. Like I said, it's stirring up some feelings and memories and stuff when I had to go through this. Yeah, I hope I answered your question, G-Man. But yeah, that's not a crime you ever want to get locked up for, man, because if you do, and I'm not saying you will, I'm just saying in general, whoever the hell you are, you put your hands on a child, you rape someone, you get called for it, honestly,
You have 1 minute remaining.
I think you'd be better off killing yourself than coming into prison and enduring what I've seen guys have to endure in here because of their charges. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. This has been Red Onion Randy. I hope you enjoyed listening to me today. For those of you who listen to me on Apple Podcasts, I would truly appreciate if you'd be willing to review me and rate me. I take whatever you can give me, but preferably 5 stars. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you for using GTL.